I do hope you recycle.
You'll notice the stickers are, well, yours I just
You can just keep putting them in.
but I'm all out of them now because I use.
All right. So good evening and welcome to the March 24th meeting of the Long Meadow School Committee. This meeting is live and being recorded and will begin tonight with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The Long Meadow School Committee maintains educational policies that foster continuous improvement by challenging and supporting all children in a safe and caring learning environment, enabling them to reach their highest potential and become productive citizens. Through effective communication and positive relationships, the Long Meadow School Committee will make informed decisions in the best interest of the students, the schools, and the Long Meadow community. Before we move on to correspondence, I'm sure you heard a very loud Pledge of Allegiance tonight. That's because we have a lot of children with us tonight who are here from Blueberry Hill to show off some of their tech machines. And so I'm going to hand it over to Principal, not Marie? Okay. Marie, Superintendent Marie Doyle, to introduce all these really great projects in front of us.
I couldn't let that pass up, that I didn't have a chance to say thank you for coming and how impressed I am with the fifth graders. Every year we have a Simple Machines project at Blueberry Hill, and I love seeing this because it shows students at their best. You show a lot of creativity. You all could problem solve what you do differently next time to make your invention better. You were creative, they're pretty. Some of you used candy machines and had great ideas. So I did talk to your teacher, Ms. Marinoni, and asked if she would bring you to come and show school committee the fine work we're doing. Sometimes we talk a lot about tests like PARCC and MCAS, the whole state and country's talking about that, while exceptional projects like this are going on every single day in Long Meadow Public Schools. So instead of me just bragging about you and telling you what a great job you're doing, I thought nothing better than bringing you here tonight, and you can let the audience know what a spectacular job you're doing over at Blueberry. So I'm going to now pass it over to Principal Pratt to introduce the program, and Lynn.
Sure. So this is our 10th year that Mrs. Marinoni has organized the Simple Machine. It's been a work of love for her. When she first introduced to this 10 years ago, it has just gained in momentum, and each year we are so impressed with what the students do. And so Lynn is going to talk a little bit about the whole project and how we should get started.
So it's a 3-week project, and the first week we do the introductions. I show them what actual tools are. Flathead screwdrivers, Phillips head screwdrivers, saws, electric drills. We do the whole thing. They become very impressed that their lady teacher knows how to use these things.
I'm impressed, actually.
And the girls realize that they can use those things too, although I do the saw and the drill. The first week we go through the introductions. I set up the mousetrap game, and they love to see how that goes, how the continuous momentum of the marble. And then I show a great video. Honda Corporation put together a commercial, and we were going to show you. I don't know if it's going to be able to come up, but it's a 60-second commercial, and it is
A15, yeah.
It's called The Cog, and Honda Corporation took 140 parts, and it took them 3 months, $6 million, and 606 takes to do this video.
Wow.
And I just wanted to share this with you. The kids really loved it, and it was quite inspiring for them.
just work.
So anyways, you can only imagine how many times they wanted me to play that over and over and over again.
Now they're all buying a Honda.
Right. So, of course, on a smaller scale, we have something that is familiar to them with how things just work. And it took them probably not 606 takes, but it took them quite a while to make sure that their machines worked. They had to make a blueprint, which some of them have here. They also wrote books called The Important Thing About Simple Machines, where they had to research them so that they know how they worked and how they made work easier. So part of the project was they had to have all 6 simple machines. There's a gear that is sometimes said to be a simple machine, but I told them they could either have a gear or a wheel and axle. And the marble had to have something to do with each of these simple machines. It had to start and it had to finish without a touch of their hand, so that they had to make things work. So I will pass it over to them and let them demonstrate for you how theirs. Do you want to start first, girls, and talk about your machine?
Students, when you come up, would you please introduce yourself when your group starts? And everyone needs to talk into the microphone. It won't make you louder, you'll have to project, but this goes to the cable TV so people at home can hear you. And if you're not speaking into the microphone, they're just going to see your mouth moving. So make sure you're talking into the mic, okay? Okay.
I'm Ella Matthews. I'm Kara Hayes. And I'm Catherine Lee. And we made the Simple Machine. It's a winter wonderland, kind of. And we took a lot of hard work building this, kind of, because everything was really frustrating and we couldn't get anything to really fit together at first. And then we just started building things, and then we said, hey, that should be part of a machine, and then, yeah. I think we got our inspiration from that video that Mrs. Marinoni showed us with the how everything was hitting each other and then it just ended up working. I think that's how we had the idea for the dominoes, which ends our simple machine.
You want to talk about where all the different simple machines, where they are?
Okay, this is our screw and our pulley. This is our inclined plane, our lever, a wheel and axle, and our wedge. Should we start it?
Sure.
I would love to see it.
Nice.
Yeah. I was gonna wait, just get it.
The day of the show is the pressure's on because I give them 3 times to make it work, to try as part of their grade. Of course, I've been grading them the whole 2 weeks. We work 45 minutes a day for 2 weeks.
Wow.
And from the beginning to the
Wow.
end.
Before school and after school as well.
Wow.
I had full work times.
That's great.
So great. How about the next
Ladies,
group?
before they go, is there anything you do differently next time in creating this project?
Well, we try to add more things to make the machine more complicated and longer. So,
Did you have to make adjustments to make it work correctly?
all of the time. All of the time.
Because that worked very, very well, so thank you very much, very impressive.
Thank you.
Just push the microphone over your way. There we go. Thank you.
Introduce yourself first.
I'm Caitlin. I'm Caitlin. Hi, my name is Olivia. I'm Grace. Welcome to Gemstone Falls. I'm going to talk about the difficulties we had. One of them was we started with thinking it was going to go through this little box, and it didn't, so we had to make an extension to the board. And we're like, well, how is this going to fit on here? Because we used the edge of the board, and so we had to like put popsicle sticks under it. And then another challenge was getting the pulley to actually work, because a lot of the time the bucket didn't fall into this, and we had to put a little weight under right here. And another challenge was getting the gears to work, because it has to have enough speed to actually hit the bucket so the platform can dump into this little other platform. And yeah.
Okay, so I'll talk about the simple machines we're using. So first we're using a pulley and then a screw to hold it in place, which the string kind of runs along the screw. We have our wedges to support the backboard right here. Our incline plane is sort of this like little funnel that's going downwards. Our lever is right here down, you can't really see it, but down here with a fulcrum. And then the gears made out of Legos, which with the force of motion, pushing like this, pushing the bucket to make it turn.
Our inspiration was we were starting out with Percy Jackson, a book we all read, and then we kind of decided that was a little complicated because there was a lot. And a demonstration is it goes through the tube and down to the gears.
Oops. Oh, sorry. It works 99.99%.
Wait, is it? Wait. Yay!
Same question. So you've retweaked this many times, but is there anything you do differently next time?
Well, something that we might do different next time, well, what I would do different next time is maybe make this look like more smoother other than like bouncy, bouncy, bouncy. Maybe just make it go like one little funnel thing that just goes down, so it would make it go faster. So, yeah.
I would make it longer, and since we started up here thinking it was going to go through this, like not have that, because it was just kind of a waste of time to make that track back here. Yeah, there's a tiny opening. Yeah.
We used 20 boxes. I think there's 500 popsicle sticks in each box. We had 26 machines. That's how many they used, plus hundreds of glue sticks, hot glue guns we had going.
Fantastic. Thank you. That was great.
That was great.
Hello, my name is Maxim,
And my name's Arushi.
and this is the tech machine. Ta-da! So wait, can you get the PowerPoint up there?
I'm working on it right now. We're a team.
Yeah, everything. Yeah.
Okay.
You can pick it up.
I'm not gonna. So yeah, that's a picture of it at home. That's just the starting slide. So yeah, next slide. So yeah, here we have like simple machines are the basic mechanical devices for applying a force, such as an inclined plane, wedge, screw, gear, pulley, wheel, and axle and lever. And we actually have like the little wedge over here, the pulley's over there. Here's the lever, see that falls down lever. Then we have like another inclined plane, that's an inclined plane. This is a screw, inclined plane, wheel and axle over here. Pushes that down. So that's at least how it's supposed to work. Okay, next slide. Yeah, here are the problems. You see this.
Well, sometimes the marble would start to fly out from the side.
Yeah.
The lever over here sometimes wouldn't drop the marble down. Sometimes the marble wouldn't hit the car at the end. The ball sometimes got stuck here, and down here.
Next slide. Here, I actually have like our plans just to compare them. We have our original plan, which is there on that side. So as you can see, it ended up pretty much the same as, well, it's close to what we were thinking of. Only the lever over there was a bit different. We wanted it to like go like that, but after looking at other teams who tried to do it, we decided to do it a bit easier with this type of lever. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, in the final picture, everything that's highlighted in red, that's all the simple machines. Next slide. I actually made an app for
Microphone?
this.
Can you go to the microphone?
Oh, yeah. I made an app for this, and I don't know. This is kind of how it actually looks.
Max, it's up there already.
I know. That's kind of how it looks, and I have it on here too. It's over here. No,
what
back
happened?
side. Back
Oops.
No, brother.
Yeah, and you can see like the video. It's
The
like a mini
play.
simulation. Press the play button. So yeah, you can see it. It's a bit fast. It's like 4 seconds. And Max, you don't have to.
Still amazing.
And actually on here I have the same simulation. No, you won't see from there. But I also have
Max Tonu Entertainment made this app. The machine starts when you pull on the string. This lifts the wedge. A wedge is a simple machine that holds or separates an object. In this case, it is holding the object. After the wedge is lifted, the marble starts rolling. Why? Because it is on an inclined plane, or ramp. This simple machine harnesses the power of gravity to move the object. The marble then goes into the cup. The cup is attached to a string. The string goes down, but, on the other side of the pulley the string goes up. This lifts the lever or cup, and the marble falls out of the cup and onto the screw. The screw is like a curled inclined plane. After sliding down the screw, the marble enters another inclined plane. The marble then hits the toy car. The car has a wheel and axle. Imagine a car without wheels. The friction between the body of the car and the inclined plane will make it stay. The car rides down the inclined plane and is stopped by the popsicle stick. The machine stopped.
Yeah, that's an app so I made. And next slide. Anyone who has an next slide. And anybody who has an Android phone here can actually download it. I have these. I printed out. My sister painted Android on there, drew it.
I like it.
So anybody who would like to download it.
Thank you.
So.
Next slide.
Oh yeah, let's see how it works. Oh yeah, next. Well, let's see how it works first. So.
And then we can put the next.
And now the next slide.
Oh, nice. Marinara. Hold on, one question. Anything you do differently next time?
Oh yeah, anything I would do what would you do different?
Well, maybe I would make the machine a bit less complicated.
You think it's too complicated?
Yeah, a bit too complicated.
It worked well. Did it take a lot of refining to get it to
Yeah,
the stage?
Yeah, like these parts. That part was always what was I gonna? Oh yeah, it's a bit too flimsy. It was like hard getting it into the car and stuff. So I would just make it more stable because it's sometimes like any little twitch already makes like a big difference in how it's gonna work. And by the way, this is a diagram that we drew.
Fantastic.
I drew.
What's interesting, though, is how both of you spoke about looking at other projects, and the first group mentioned the incline not being steep enough, but you went back and did that. So that's interesting how they learned from each other, as well as the continual adjustments made these simple machines work really well. So
Yeah, ours is actually a bit too steep. I think we should like extreme because it's too fast. Yeah.
Okay, good to know. Thank you very much.
For inviting us here today, and thank you, kids, for coming and showing. There were 23 other wonderful machines as well. Too bad you all couldn't have come to the show. They all had their definite personalities, and the work that they did putting these together was just awesome. Thank you for having me.
This has been absolutely fantastic. I didn't want to cut you off, but I did. Everything that we've seen here today is so impressive. I can only imagine how great the other 23 are. I think that this is such a great thing for all these kids to be learning, especially because we know how important STEM STEAM is going to be going forward. And so to see you using a drill is a great example. It is. I mean, because we need to have more, engagement from kids, from boys and girls in science and technology, and that's fantastic. So really well done. Thank you.
I also wanted the parents to see this because, Lynn, this is a perfect example of what excellent instruction looks like. We have everything from differentiation, someone was able to make an app, to students who want to readjust. You did reading, writing, research. You also had the basic vocabulary that clearly they could name and it was incorporated. So when people say to you, teach to the test, you teach to the test. But it was done in the way that Longmeadow expects us to teach to the test. When these students sit down and take the MCAS in science and technology and they were asked about simple machines, which they will be asked about, they'll be able to identify the parts, do problem solving when they're given a challenge of what they do differently. Every student I spoke to at the show was able to do that. But when we talk about do we teach the test in Longmeadow, this is the best of the best. And so when people think we're giving out worksheets and say go fill out a worksheet, this is the best of the education. And you students have made us extremely proud because of your knowledge. You're able to think critically, problem solve, and really demonstrate that you've learned a lot through this lessons. But thank you, Mrs. Marinoni, for bringing the students along in this unbelievable unit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
And before all you kids go, you should really know, I don't know if you know this or not, but your principal, Marie Pratt, Mrs. Pratt, is Principal of the Year. She just won that.
In Massachusetts.
In Massachusetts. So congratulations.
Thank you, and again, it's really a tribute to everybody at Blueberry, not just me, it's the whole staff and all the support and all the great work they do, so.
Fantastic.
Well, don't go just yet.
Do you think you're going to come tonight and not have to stick around?
MESPA awards this every single year, and they pick an elementary principal. That's the elementary principal organization. And when they look at a principal of the year, they look at several things. Somebody who's dedicated to the profession, someone that goes above and beyond, someone who's knowledgeable about curriculum and assessment, but that serves not only the school, but goes beyond the broader community. And Ms. Pratt does that. But for those of us that know her well, she worries about every student in the school. She is upset when teachers or students are upset. She really works hard with parents, and she does her best to please everybody, and that's not always easy for a principal to do. But it's a fantastic school, and she's behind the scenes supporting people all the way. So we think she really deserved this award. We're very proud of you, and we just want to congratulate you publicly on this wonderful achievement. For now.
Well, thank you all so very much for coming.
Thank you. All right, let's get our machine.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate you coming out. Did Miss Marinoni give you homework tonight?
No.
Kidding.
We have MCAS tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
Hey, good night.
You are ready. Relax and have fun during the test, students. You'll do well, I'm sure. What I'd like to see is that we add to our agenda maybe a student presentation every meeting, and we bring students from every single school. If we can get a group every time to come in and show what they're doing, I think we could demonstrate what's going on in the classroom so people have a good idea of the excellent work that's happening.
I support that. All right. So we'll give all of our guests one more second to. All right. So to get back on agenda, correspondence. Is there any correspondence?
Yes, let's see. We have an email letter from Ms. Stephanie Jasmine dated March 11th regarding the transition to full-day kindergarten grant. We have an email letter from Ms. Stephanie Jasmine dated March 10th regarding the kindergarten program. An email letter received March 19th from Michelle Grotsky thanking the school committee for the opportunity to join the committee.
Great, thank you. All right, so moving right along, I'm going to rearrange the agenda just a little bit since we do have some other guests here tonight. Do you want to do the school improvement specialist?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Should we, is Cindy coming?
Cynthia, I haven't heard from. Okay. So, if you'd like to come up to the hot seat, Jen? Oh, jeepers. In Long Meadow, we have what's called the School Improvement Specialist of the Long Meadow Public Schools Award. And it's given to teachers that complete requirements that go above and beyond the call of duty. It involves taking a lot of courses, and it prepares them to really focus in on what the system's goals are to improve and enhance their skills. And it also puts them in a position of being able to help their colleagues so that we're continuously improving our craft and what we're doing. So Jennifer Quindale is a recipient tonight, as well as Cynthia McSheffrey, who's not able to join us. So we'd like to thank you, because I know this takes an awful lot of time to do. It's a big commitment to work toward this, and you've managed to complete it.
It only
And
took
it's
22 years.
and it's made us all better. So thank you very much. And we hope you can share your newfound knowledge with your colleagues as much as possible. So
I'll try.
congratulations, Jennifer.
Oh. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Stay here for 1 second, let's get a picture. Oh, we got a couple people.
And a
Go
lot of time
ahead,
for
you go
everyone.
first, Steve.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
I'll get it via email.
Do you share it with Diane?
All right, thank you, Steve. So now to get back on track, do we have any visitor comments tonight? Please state your name and address for the record.
Stephanie Jasmine, 123 Englewood Road. I'll first echo Stephen Crane's comments that these are two tough acts to follow, but I've come here to get clarification on the number of what the budgetary increase cost would be for full-day kindergarten. We've had numbers from when you voted down of 400,000 to 900,000 to over 500,000. I believe we've also had 450,000. My understanding is it would require 2 additional teachers and 2 aides. So I'm looking for a number.
I'll speak to that. Tom is going to put that together for you. It's slightly confusing, and Janet has gone through this before, and Tom, but we don't know the enrollment yet. And we don't know the enrollment because we looked at past history. For example, last year, we had 131 students on the census, and we actually had an enrollment of by a number of 175 by September. So we actually had 40 more students at least than anticipated. And the same thing's happening this year. We're looking at a number of about 135. The enrollment is holding there right now, so that we cannot give you a definitive number of how many teachers there will be until the end of the summer, when all the parents move into town, all the parents come in and register. The census is incomplete because there are some people who have not had the opportunity to fill out the census, so that is not accurate information, and we know that by studying past history. So it is impossible to give you an accurate number of teachers or accurate budget until we resolve this and we actually have kids enrolled for classes.
What's the highest number you've ever had here for kindergarten enrollment?
Well over 200.
Well
We've had
over 200.
230.
I would just say that this is not time for back and forth. These are comments that are made to the committee. So-
Okay, so I would like that number. The fact is, you voted down funding kindergarten based on a number. That number was 400,000. You've told people that you can't afford it, that it can't be afforded, but you don't have a number. So I would like, it would be helpful to have a number.
I just want to provide you a little clarification. We actually did not vote down kindergarten. We voted on a budget.
Right,
That
you voted
included-
down sending it to the select board for the money.
Our budget never was going to include that number. We voted to set a tuition for full-day kindergarten.
Yes, but when you voted, you
Right,
said
like I
you
said, this is
could
not
not.
a back and
you-
forth. So
Okay,
I
but
apologize,
you brought that up, and so it's only in fairness that I can answer that.
Okay.
When you voted, you said that you could not bring that number to the select board. So I'm just asking, I came here just for a number.
So we'll be able to provide you with that information as soon as possible.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
School committee comments?
I went to the concert Wednesday night. The 5th grade all the way through high school. And it was one of my most exciting times here. I've only been here a year and a half. But besides the Pops concert we had earlier in the year, I have to say, especially that song at the end of the night, every grade sang, I got chills. I thought it was fabulous. So I just want to say how great I thought it was. And I think you two were in there. I can see by the smile.
Fantastic concert.
It was a beautiful concert. It was wonderful.
Well done. Janet?
I would just like to take a moment to welcome Michelle as our new member of school committee, and also to thank all of those who applied and wish them success in their campaign. I believe all 4 of you are running for the open one-year seat, so the best of luck. And to thank everyone for coming out and showing interest.
I think I'd just like to comment on, I'm puzzled by Stephanie Jasmine's comments. We've given her those numbers over and over and over again. We have continued to let her know that we do not know the enrollment. We have given her past history and accurate data on how the enrollment varies from the time we look in the late winter, early spring to the summertime. And this continues to seem to be a barrage against school committee when she has the facts, but she tends to come forward and present a piece of a problem. For example, her accusation tonight is that we're not giving her a number. She's been given numbers to the best of our ability, and I'm frustrated by the fact that we continue to answer questions, but somehow publicly the accusation is we're not answering them, and I'm frustrated.
I also want to just welcome Michelle to the board. Look forward to having you and getting you up to speed. Okay, moving right along into, we have no old business. I'm going to rearrange it again because I know that Stephen wants to go home. We have select board meeting?
You guys, I have to take a minute to hook up the computer so you guys can do
Okay.
more agenda items.
Did you want to do your superintendent?
Sure. I am so thankful for Blueberry coming out, because sometimes in our job we get bogged down with the little things, and when we get out to schools or we go to inspiration concerts or things like that and we see what's really happening in the district, you sit back and you take a sigh and say, wow, there are amazing things happening. And I think we need to start to showcase the phenomenal things that are happening. That music program from grades 5 to 12, it's on my report, but watching in particular the 5th and 6th graders as they looked at the high school students perform, and the wonder and how mesmerized they were that this is what the result of their hard work was going to be, was probably the most priceless part of the evening for me. There are some clips on YouTube. LCTV did videotape the whole thing, so I hope people that didn't get to go to Symphony Hall will have a chance to put it on. You will have an evening that you will thoroughly enjoy if you take time to watch it. The music was tremendous. The Long Meadow High School project continues to be a key area of focus, I guess I would say. Tom, Kevin, and I continue to meet with the contractor, the vendors, the OPM, the engineers who designed it, and more, because there continue to be little problems. This is a critical area in terms of the development of the building project, because the warranties are beginning to run out. So we are doing our best to hold their feet to the fire, because it's critical that we have identified everything and that we stay on them right now. If we don't stay on them, we're going to lose out on the warranties. And there are still problems with the heating system, but the most recent update is that it's actually the software that's not speaking to each other when it's in unoccupied mode. They have different pieces of software, different pieces of equipment, and therefore they program differently, so they're working on that right now. We had an issue a week ago where all the boilers and the air handlers shut down in the new high school. And so when we brought everyone together and got to the bottom of it, it's software. So it's issues like this that we continue to be watching to make sure that they're fixing these problems before we allow them to leave the project. Bobby Barquette and Peter Greenberg have also organized a meeting with the MSBA. That is the Massachusetts Building Authority. While we're pursuing funding from them, there have been disappointing returns in terms of their commitment to what we said we get from the state and what we're getting. So Bobby and Peter have called in our state reps, and we're going to meet with them, a handful of people, to go through what the bills are and where we could possibly get more reimbursement from the state. Building committee met last week. They were reviewing the same issues that I'm talking about tonight, but perhaps one of the larger issues for the neighbors is the traffic. So we're having a meeting, I believe it's this week, I'll get you the date in a minute. All the neighbors are invited, Mike Rabel's coming, the engineers are coming, the project manager, the contractor, to see if there's any way to resolve the issue. The problem with the traffic is getting a little bit worse because parents are now parking on the side streets in front of people's houses rather than waiting in line to come through and drop kids off. We please ask parents to pull all the way up at the high school when you're dropping students off because that's backing the line up and it's backing traffic up all around town. Stephen Crane has said that there's going to be a new person put outside a traffic crossing guard to see if we can expedite the amount of time students are taking to cross to reduce the congestion when students are coming into the building. So we'll have more information for you on that in the next meeting. Thank you. The quick update, this is a good one. The concert on LCTV will be Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Channel 12. So if you want to catch that concert we're talking about, it's Wednesday night, 7 p.m. on Channel 12.
So we call real-time updates.
Real time. Next, the Inspiration Concert. You really need to watch that. You will have a great time at home watching that, I guarantee you. We talked about Marie Pratt, and we couldn't be prouder of her. Principals are often the unsung heroes in education. They can make or break a building. There is so much that's on their plate every single day in terms of their highest priority educating students, but in order to do that, you have to worry about if they're physically safe, if they're mentally feeling stable, if they're feeling emotionally like they're able to learn. And the principals play a role in making sure that all the parts are working together and that students are safe in learning. So Marie deserves this award, and we're delighted for her. Our new lifelong learning program, the brochure is out, so go online, please. Look on our website. You can register online. For those of you who prefer to use paper, if you go to Greenwood, they have paper copies there, and we'll get you registered for courses. We have well over 20 courses that are being offered, and we hope we have the enrollment to run them. If you need help with tuition, please let us know. We have scholarship as well as reduced rates for whoever in the community would like to join us. We kept prices really low because we want people to come use the new high school, new facility. One thing that people might particularly be interested in, the new language lab on the second floor at the high school will be used during lifelong learning. So people who are going to study a language, and 3 are offered, you'll be using in the language lab. So that's an exciting opportunity for our adults in the community. Thanks to all the Blueberry students and staff for coming out for our Simple Machines. It was fantastic. And finally, we're working on a new look for our website. If you look at Long Meadow High School's website, they have just redesigned thanks to Hillary Godin, the art teacher. So we have some school committee members on the communications. We met and we talked about how can we update ours. So Hillary's going to come up with a template. All the schools are going to use it. They'll all be linked. We'll have a district calendar, and you'll see the new face of the district, and that website will probably be active by the time school opens in September. Joseph?
And actually, Ms. Godin's the same teacher I mentioned in my last report. She did a great job on taking our course offerings book from a PDF document into a website, so I'm sure she'll do a great job.
Fantastic. I'm looking forward to seeing her work. So.
Thank you, Marie. Any questions for Marie? None? I might as well, my report's short, so I'll just do it real quick. And then, where do you have to be?
I defer to the chair.
Thank you. All right, a couple announcements. First, if any committee members or residents have nominations for Citizen of the Year, you get them to Debbie House as soon as possible. I think the last day to submit them is April 11th. I think that's the day. So that's number one. Saturday night, I think I speak for all of us when we congratulate Wolf Swamp on a fantastic dinner with the stars. It was a great event and a great fundraiser for the Wolf Swamp PTA. I also want to and I'm going to steal some of Joseph's thunder right now, congratulate the boys and girls Long Meadow High School basketball team for fantastic seasons. They made us so proud getting as far as they got, and next season's going to be fantastic. I know it. I also had the privilege of congratulating the girls volleyball team, the Division II state champions, yesterday at the Holyoke St. Patrick's Day Parade as they marched along, so that was exciting, although Janet's daughter was not there. She must have had something better to do. And finally, I just wanted to update the committee on the select board meetings that have occurred in the last week. The boiler project at Williams Middle School is approved. as well as the Long Meadow High School track. So both of those items are on the warrant. I believe everybody should have gotten a copy of the town meeting warrant today. The other item, which probably falls under finance report, so we can discuss a little bit more then and not waste any more of Stephen's time, is the select board did vote to allocate us $20,000 less than our approved FY15 budget. And they did that basically going off of the assumption that with new boilers at Williams Middle School, there will be a approximate savings of about $20,000 in utilities. So I'm just putting it out there for discussion purposes, and we could probably talk about that more under finance, but just want to make sure everybody was.
Could I just add?
Yeah, please.
We were at the meeting when it came up to support the 2 boilers, which were $200,000? $100,000. In my last district, we saved 47% on utilities when we put in a high-efficiency boiler. So the select board did ask me, representing you, if we would be open to taking that cut in energy, given we were getting the $100,000 in boilers. And I said that we would bring that back to you. So I think that in moving ahead with their budget, they were trying to work with us on that.
Sure.
If I may, the building maintenance division head, Mr. Fanoof, had given me a number of about $6,000 a month during peak heating season in savings based on what he had looked at for the existing boilers versus new high-efficiency condensing boilers. And so the number was not arbitrary. I mean, it was back of the envelope to be sure, but not arbitrary. As the superintendent noted, she saved 47%. On a similar boiler replacement in a previous life for me, it was about 45 to 50% as well, and that's about, I want to say your gas bill or your gas budget's 40,000 and change. 50. So the number is, like I said, it's not arbitrary. It is based on what everyone fairly expects to save. So the 100 for the 20 was a good trade.
Okay. Fantastic.
Thank you for explaining that.
Any questions for me? Very great. Oh, one more thing. This coming Thursday at about, I guess, 11:30, it is LHS Teacher Appreciation Lunch. So I know that we've got some really dedicated parents from the high school who put together a really great thank you lunch for our teachers at the high school. And I know I'm stopping by to say thank you for all that they do every single day. And I encourage anyone who has time to do so as well. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to the town manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the committee going out of order on the agenda to get me out of your hair early enough. So the reason why I'm here is at the request of the select board, and it is with regard to what is commonly referred to as the water tower property, which are 2 parcels of land. I have them on the board behind you, rather than hand out. And if I can dim some of the lights, if it would be helpful. In fact, I want to thank the IT director and the assistant superintendent for teaching me how to use the smartboard so I can actually mark it up now. It's very exciting. I may, if it would be helpful. Maybe I will just orient people to where we are.
Joseph.
Let's still go back to.
You got it.
All right, got it. I got a rookie. So the 2 parcels combined are about 21 acres. They said they're called the water tower property because the town's water tower, that for those who don't know, the water tower equalizes pressure in our water system. So if a lot of people use a lot of water at the same time, or if the pumps have been on and people haven't been using a lot of water, this acts as kind of like a bladder that rises and falls, so the system's pressure stays even. So this is the water tower right here. This is Frank Smith Road. It's hard to read the label. This is Academy Drive that kind of dead ends here and turns. On paper, this is a 50-foot right-of-way, and it's called on paper Academy Drive, but it really is a dirt road. That is an access road up through here through the water tower property. So
just to give you all the orientation. So, and there, of course, you can see this housing, it's completely encircled by housing. Switch back.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry about that. So, the story of this parcel goes back quite a ways. In 1959, there was a vote at a town meeting for an article that acquired this property through possibly eminent domain for the specific purpose of recreation or playground or some other outdoor recreational use, and it did authorize, constructing equipment or buildings to, in the furtherance thereof. But it was always clearly intended from the vote to be a, like I said, recreational playground area, and it was placed in the care, custody, and control of the Board of Park Commissioners and the school committee.
Stephen, can I ask you a question about that before you?
Was
I
it
don't wanna
something I
interrupt.
said?
Yes. Does that, I mean, obviously the Board of Park Commissioners no
Mhm.
longer exists with the new Home Rule Charter.
Mhm.
Does the current Parks Board have that authorization, or has that been voided?
The select board now
In
has
their
those
staff.
those duties that have been now vested with the select board.
Okay. Thank
So
you.
I don't know what the original intent was. I mean, obviously it was a while ago. I mean, John, you were probably there. I don't know if you know what they intended by that.
Well, I had always heard that it was for a potential school site.
Honestly, I have the record here, and I also have a letter from Town Council Martell, and I did go through it, and I had kind of heard that as well. That is not reflected in the record at all for a school. And I think as the town has developed and evolved, other recreational and playground amenities have been built that to some extent mitigate the need for an additional one over here, especially since it is far removed from, I think, any other like another node with children like schools, other than the neighborhoods around it. So the short answer is that there is an interest, I believe, in the long range plan in redeveloping the property in some fashion. And the first step in that process, in what is really a very long process, quite frankly, would be a vote, and this is what I'm here to do, is to request a vote from the school committee to transfer care, custody, management, and control of the parcel to the select board. So as it is, it's half select board, half school committee now, and this would really give the authority over and the responsibility for following the necessary steps to get this to the point where it could be possibly redeveloped in the hands of the select board and the town manager. As under the charter, the town manager is the director of planning and community development, which is one of the reasons why this is of particular interest to me. So it's a pretty simple request. I don't think in practice it changes very much for the school committee. And once if the school committee does that, once that happens, then we would go obviously to the long range plan, possibly work with the neighborhood and identify what is the highest and best use of that land. My personal belief, and this is just my own, this is not an official town position, it's only my own belief, we are substantially built out to the tune of 98% or so. And we also have a significant amount of conservation land. So every year when we do our Proposition 2.5 formula, the new growth number is always very small because we are not we aren't turning vacant parcels into built out parcels, which really makes that new growth number grow higher and enables you to generate generate additional revenue to either keep the tax rate down or to be able to either expand services or make greater investment in infrastructure or do some of the other things that the townspeople may want to see done. So a vacant parcel like this that could be used for a taxable use represents a great opportunity for generating new tax growth. That said, taking it from the vote to transfer care, custody, and control of the select board doesn't by itself enable us to do that. You then need a 2/3 vote of town meeting and an act of the legislature to use it for some other purpose. So, so I mean, it would take a long time, and we won't know what that other purpose is until some significant amount of planning and, you know, involvement, you know, some community input and possibly a, you know, some kind of charrette or something like that, or retaining a design firm to see what could be built there, what's the topography, are there wetlands, things like that. So, you know, it's not like it's going to be, you know, there'll be bulldozers there next summer. I mean, it'll take a long time before it gets redeveloped. This is just the first step in the process that we want to see move forward. Like I said, largely because it is underutilized land. It is not really needed for the original purpose for which it was acquired. And like I said, it represents a great revenue generating opportunity for the town. So with that, I will take questions.
Janet, then John.
Thank you.
And then Katie. Sorry. My head was that.
I know that last week I attended Mr. Santinello's presentation for his, I think he called it Vision of Long Meadow.
A vision.
Pardon?
A vision for Long Meadow.
Vision for Long
Yes.
Meadow. And he explained that he had yet to present that to the select board. He was presenting it to the community first. And we have we have a long-range plan that, according to him, has been shelved for the last 10 years. So as of right now, we don't have an active long-term plan or the select board or people working on a long-term plan. So until there's a plan in place, why would you want us to vote to relinquish, you know, care, custody, control, without knowing or being able to have a say in how that's developed, because his plan was contingent on a whole domino effect, which those dominoes do affect us. And if that's the plan that we're looking to adopt, I think we need more information before we could commit to that.
That's an excellent point, Janet. And I think I was not involved in the preparation of the plan.
And I understand. I understand that.
To my knowledge, the long-range plan that was done, I think in 2004, is the plan of record. I would say that before, and I honestly I can't recall now. I just completely blanked on what it called for these parcels. But either way, you have to look at not only where has the town come over the last decade since that plan was written, but where is it going. But that is the plan of record. I think this is kind of pulling a lens back from Long Meadow for a second. When you think about planning and development, in previous lives I've been involved in developing and implementing, you know, large scale community development plans, and when there's a need for planning, like for example, you have an old mill district that's largely vacant and you want to get it to be residential, then there's zoning changes and things like that, and that's generally what planning and that's what redevelopment plans are generally used for. Because Long Meadow is built out mostly built out with single-family residential homes, that need for really continual updating of plans isn't as great here. And it's not to say that we don't plan or don't want to have plans or not know what we're doing. It's just that the variables that usually drive the evolution of plans aren't as strong here because the town is largely residential. The character of that hasn't changed. It does not appear that it would change in the not even the near future, in the foreseeable future. So I hear what you're saying, and certainly this would be, the other thing is planning outside of a context. Sometimes that's how plans end up on shelves, and I'm not saying that the long-range plan has been shelved to be forever ignored. It just, we don't go back to it because there's no call for it, because there's not large-scale development. Something like this would cause us to pull a long-range plan and say, okay, what does it call for here? Is this still the right choice for us? And you would then be reviewing and going through a renewed planning process in the context of something that can actually happen. And I think that's, from a public policy exercise standpoint, that's usually a better way to get people engaged in it.
And I didn't mean to imply, I know Mr. Santinello made it very clear that it was his plan and it was not a select board plan. And I know that there's that other plan that's been shelved. It's just, with not having long-term planning being
in the 5 years that I've been here, being an active
Mhm.
process, I hope you can understand where my question comes from. It's not, I just hope you understand.
I understand, and in practice, I can also understand some reticence on this, but in practice, the select board is already an equal partner. And to get a town meeting vote on a change of use, it would have to be approved through the warrant by the select board. And they would have to petition, the select board would have to petition the legislature for the home rule petition, for the home rule legislation. So, for the most part, the select board is really statutorily responsible for this process. It really is only a vestige of a long ago town meeting vote that the school committee was given responsibility, and like I said, the park commissioners don't even exist anymore. So this change really is just something to get us off the dime a little bit. Ultimately, the school committee, would not have independent authority over the property, and the school committee's role would then, even if like the school committee wanted to go out and raise the funds through either an override or something like that to decide to develop that as recreational space, you could probably do that. I don't get the sense that that's something that the school committee is looking to do as we sit here today. Even if this vote is done, that can still happen, quite honestly. So it really is just bringing the letter of the law in line with the current government structure in Long Meadow.
Thank you.
Okay.
John.
Referring to your visual here, what's that tract of land in the upper right corner?
I believe that's Turner Park, isn't it? Or, yeah, it's Turner Park.
And who controls Turner Park?
The town.
Park and Rec?
The town.
So the select board? Well, if they have that large a tract of land, I'm wondering why they're focusing on this one here. But isn't it true? I want to say this fairly. I've heard it said that there's a shortage of playing fields in Long Meadow. And the ones we have are overused. How does that square with, wanting to take this? Because that's a potential tennis court area, maybe even playing fields, although it's up on a hill. I don't know if it would fit a conventional, like a lacrosse field or a soccer field, but any thoughts on that?
Yes. Nothing that I've given you my personal opinion of what I think would be a good use for the site. At the end of the day, it could end up being recreational fields. But to redevelop the property in any fashion, you would need select board approval. Because it would take funding, that would be, the select board would have to raise and appropriate the funding, and so it really just streamlines this process. Because the school now doesn't have any grounds under its control anymore since the charter change. All school grounds are under the control of the town, on care, custody, management of the town. And so to leave this one parcel out there under the care, custody, and control of the schools, kind of, like I said, puts it out of line with what the charter says about the current configuration of roles and responsibilities in terms of physical assets of the town. Like I said, this did not get changed with the charter, which is why we need to take the vote now.
And if I could just follow up on that then. Given the pressures we're feeling because we're 98% built out, there's going to be a very strong incentive for the select board to want to put housing up there to increase the size of the tax base. Is that a reasonable projection?
It's possible. I don't, like I said, I think we are so far from that point in terms of a 2/3 vote at town presenting an article for a 2/3 vote town meeting for whatever it's going to be, and then the subsequent home rule petition, that there's going to be I think there's going to be a lot of process and a lot of public input into what the future of that land is but to streamline the process to allow it to achieve its highest and best use, care, custody, management, and control needs to be transferred to the select board. Again, to bring it in line with the care, custody, and control of all other municipal town lands in town under the new charter.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I just want to make sure I understand. Is each parcel 20 acres?
No, it's 21 combined.
Total. So that's
Yeah.
2 10-acre.
Mhm.
Okay, great.
Ish. Yeah.
And then, so you said the record doesn't reflect anything that there was an intention of putting a school here, but isn't that sort of like why it was put under the school committee and the select board? Was that, I mean, it would just go, it would be like logical to sort of, and my concern with that is you're talking about building residential property there with, and I get, like, I understand we're built out, we need more tax revenue, but you're talking about putting a school in the Blueberry district that's already overcrowded, or putting a new development in Blueberry, and we're already overcrowded at Blueberry, and if you put, 80 houses there, because you're not gonna get more, like just a number. And families move in, we get another 100 kids out of school that is already overfull.
I think, like I said,
So that's where it comes, like, that's where it's our sort of domain still, I guess, is the.
If I can read the article, it says, voted that the town acquired by eminent domain by gift or purchase for the purpose of a public playground and recreation center in accordance with the provisions of Section 14, Chapter 45 of the general laws as amended. The land in the town of Long Meadow, as described, substantially is followed, and then it gives you the meets and bounds. And that's what that is. So, I mean, it doesn't, that's it. I mean, that's the full sum of what it's intended for.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, I'm saying, like, I think that it goes without saying that by sort of tacking on the school committee to share responsibility, it was the intention that should we need space for schools, or at least so the school committee could say to the select board, listen, we're already full here, you need to think about the population that you're bringing in, as well as not just tax revenue, but the actual cost of extra students, new buildings. And
I think, Katie, I disagree in that I shouldn't say I disagree, because I just don't know that we can say what the intent was, because it was so long ago. If they wanted to build a school, then the article would have talked about building a school, because it's a very different, because they would have to change, they would have to get a home rule petition from the legislature even back then to change it from a playground to a school. And so I can only assume that the article is what it says on its face value, and as I just said, kind of projecting a number of homes or development scenario or anything like that, I don't know. But at least if we streamline the first level of approvals, then we are able to figure that out. And again, I mean, I think there's always pressure on our budgets. You all are familiar with that. You have to pass a budget as well as the town, and so with very little new growth, in my mind, as someone who has done economic and community development, you really need to take advantage or maximize every opportunity you have to expand the tax base to relieve pressure on everybody else's tax bill. So that said, I think this is just really just a recodification of what is the procedure for every other town-owned property.
so I guess my question then would be, do you need us to sign off on it in order to go forward? Like, I don't understand why our name being tacked on sort of holds the select board back from moving forward.
Part of it is because Articles 22 and 23 speak to Section 14, and they say that the land has been distributed between our board and the Board of Park Commissioners. And so, as of 2004, obviously, or 2005, there's no such thing as a Board of Park Commissioners anymore.
Right, so it just is, but I mean, like,
So
why
because
can't you
of the
move forward
way-
with our name, like our,
Because of the way the warrant articles were written at the time, the land was granted exclusively to us and that board, which is now the select board because of change in home rule charter. So if you look at the summary part of Dave Martell's letter, it says that the Board of Park Commissioners and the school committee are currently in control of this land in the absence of some town meeting action, which shifts control to some other town board or boards. Any change to this property would first require a majority vote of each. Because of the fact that town meeting and granted this land.
Right,
to a
but
school
why
committee.
can't we just do it still, I mean, like in these initial phases, I'm asking why can't we do it kind of together? Yeah. So that we, you know, like we can still have like just sort of, I guess, the ear of the select, saying like, you know, the input on the impact that any development, whether it be residential or commercial or whatever, or, you know, recreational, what, you know, what impact that has on the schools is, so I don't understand why it's stopping the initial steps forward.
It's not really stopping it, like I said, it just streamlines it, Katie. And I think, as I mentioned, the charter also took care, custody, and control of school buildings and school grounds, other than the rental of them, to the town. And so this is kind of hanging out there as an outlier. And so, quite frankly, it's not the school committee's role for any other piece of property in town to have that kind of oversight role. And this is, like I said, this change would make this consistent with everything else.
But even like on the school building, you know, the school building committee, we're like sort of jointly moving forward so that we can have the input on the impact on the students and, the, you
But
know.
that's statutory.
But I mean, but I don't see, I understand that, but I guess I'm just confused as to why it, you know, and my concern is not that, you know, clearly we're all in the same place, like we all want what's best for the town, and I just don't understand why we can't sort of move forward together.
To move things forward, if we needed joint meetings of the school committee and the select board for the phases of the process. And like I said, it is the select board's role to maintain care, custody, I know I keep using those words, but those are the big catchwords: care, custody, maintenance, and control of all other town land. And so it really, like I said, this is not really wresting something from the school committee, like an asset or something like that. It really is just clarifying language from almost 60 years ago that didn't change when the charter changed.
Could I speak to this? There were many communities back in that era that did this exact same thing. And the reason was the baby boomers. The baby boomers came along, and there were actually communities that did not have land to build schools because they had sold off or they hadn't saved the land. So many of the communities that were forward-thinking actually put the land in the domain of the school department so that would never happen again. I think we're doing that in this case, but Katie's point's a good one. If the school committee hereby turns this land over to you, and you go ahead and you build condos, we know that low-income housing is mandated by the state. I welcome it, but it also brings an increase in the number of students that you'll get. So it's a cyclical thing, and the school committee would need to have a say in that, because if you bring an increase in students, are we going to be back to the place where we don't have enough space for the schools? It depends on the units, how many families would come in, and criteria like that.
I want to get away from, I don't want the takeaway to be they're building low-income, high-density condos in the site. I mean, I think we're way, way ahead of where we need to be. In illustrating my editorial view of what could happen, it really is to lay out a scenario where we don't make new land here in Long Meadow, and we certainly don't have very much vacant land, to kind of to frame why this process that we would be going on is important.
But
at the end of this process, it could end up being a playground and a recreational center, but at least this gives the select board the ability to manage a planning process for the parcels. That would obviously include school committee input, but it really is by virtue of the charter, it really is the select board's role to do that.
But I think that's our concern, is that, like, you say, like, oh, yeah, you know, it'll be with school committee input, but I think that my concern is that not that we're giving up control, but we're giving up sort of like that right to input is what my concern is. That
I just think that the right to input is, because I laid out all the other steps in the process that are solely within the discretion of the select board. It really is a minor role in the process, and I think it just, like I said, it streamlines it. It makes it consistent with the select board duties as spelled out under the charter, and it just really is, to me, an administrative change, not a dramatic policy change.
So why can't they go forward with a plan
a couple plans and ideas. And then, once the ideas are, a little bit more solid, come back and say, okay, these are our ideas for this property. Now ask us for the relinquishing of control, transfer control.
To what end?
Well, like, right now, we would, not today, but like, at this point, you're asking us to transfer control to the select board, basically, in like short terms, to
Well,
do
yeah.
whatever.
They already control half.
Right.
Essentially.
So, we want to give up, you want us to give up our half of, or our portion of the control, so that they can do basically whatever. Why can't they go forward with some ideas and some plans and then come back to us and say, okay, we have these ideas for the property, but we need you to transfer control? Like, why do we need to do the transfer control first? Why can't they come with ideas and then we can say, then we transfer?
Because I guess they could, but it really is not the efficient way to do it. I mean, the school committee does not have jurisdiction over property decisions on anything else.
Right.
And to some extent, I guess I've only been here for 50 weeks, but one could probably make the argument that it is that very fact is one of the probably the main reasons why it is still, in a prime residential area, still woods.
Well, I mean, I just did like quick numbers on like, I don't know what the average taxpayer pays around here, but I figured
$7,500 or something like that.
well, so I went 18 homes per parcel, times 2, times 9,000, I just assumed. That's only $342,000 in revenue for the town for the year. So as far as it being turned to, and I know that they had turned away an idea, one of the select board members turned away an idea that Liz had over the summer about some billboards that could generate somewhere around $300,000 a year in revenue, because it was only $300,000. So the revenue generated by adding homes doesn't sound like it would be that big of a deal.
But it could have like a devastating impact on the school around the corner
But it
for
would-
population. Like, that's sort of,
I don't know, like I said, I don't know that that is a knowable and predictable outcome. And, like I said, the school committee, the structure of government that gave the school committee this responsibility is entirely different than the structure of government we exist in today. And I think it makes it a lot more efficient and, like I said, streamlined, and gives the select board the ability to move forward with some kind of planning process with this without having, I guess, a proverbial string attached, or having to come back and, work out go through a whole planning process and then come back and possibly have it amended or disapproved here. It's difficult. It's not easy to ask people to go through all that, spend the money on possibly engineers for site design, or anything, landscape architects for a subdivision plan, or a plan for a recreational area and playground, to go through and make that expenditure, because we don't have in-house designers. So we would have to outsource all this. So to go through, have the community meetings, pay the designer, go through all this, and have to come back here and have it be, well, we're not really into it, so we're not going to improve it. It really is. It's not. It's like I said. It's not an efficient way to do this. And since the school committee's input into this really is from a legislative standpoint is comparatively small compared to all the other steps that are needed in this process. I know it feels like you'd be giving up something big, but in practice and in the way the charter works and the general laws work, it really is not all that much.
Liz, you had a question?
Yes, this is a tough one. Will the water tower actually stay there?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Can we negotiate for full-day kindergarten? Sorry, just.
what happens if 150 kindergartners move in there? That's
I mean, I hear a lot of the concerns, and I think that they're very, very valid concerns that you're raising. I do. But when I think about the history of why this area was zoned for potential school use, I think about, like Marie said, baby boomers. And I think back to Greenwood School and Converse Street School being, used for different purposes now. One's housing and one is home of the senior center and park and recreation. Our population is not the same as it was, and the needs for us to be, to continue to have ownership of part of this land is not as necessary. But I truly hear the concerns that, that you're sharing, because I think they are relevant to us in the sense that we do need to be concerned about, populations moving in that will impact enrollment. Especially zoned for Blueberry, especially where there are, population issues. But at the same time, I do feel like, we have no purpose for continuing to keep this necessarily. And, for community development's, sake, that's revenue that, could potentially be on the table, that could potentially fund teachers, that could, potentially improve the quality of the community. I don't have as much of an issue, supporting relinquishing control of this small swath of land. So, it's my say. Janet.
Two things. One is, I think those who wrote this obviously did it with the purpose of collaboration and cooperation, so that one board did not get to override another, and that the land would be used collaboratively. So I think there's a valid point to why, it was written the way it was, so that it wasn't just, one group run with it however they choose. And we're supposed to be working collaboratively for the town. We're part of the town. We are trying to, we do try to make sure not only what we're doing is what's in the best interest of the students and the schools, but also that we're good stewards toward the community. But I had a question, Stephen, in regards to, that we don't own any of the land or have control of any of the land that our properties are on. So can I just ask a what-if scenario? What if we decide to consolidate middle schools and build on one site and not the other? Who then owns the non-used site? Is it still under our purview, or does that land go then to the select board?
I believe it goes to the select board.
Okay.
And I guess, and I want to be clear, and I apologize if I'm not doing a good job presenting this. It's not a school site. I hope we can agree upon the language. I think everybody has it in front of them. It was not acquired as a school site. I mean, all kidding aside, none of us were there, and to try and project what their intent was, I believe, and our town council believes, that we have to take it at its face value. It was intended as a playground and a recreation area, and my view of the parks commissioners and the school board being jointly assigned to it is those are two entities that oversee playgrounds and recreational areas. And so you could have had a situation where, hypothetically speaking, those boards didn't speak to each other. And so the town meeting was like, well, we're not going to have them fight over it. We'll just force them to work together. But they were both both bodies, I'm sure, were in the business of developing recreational space and or developing playgrounds. Today, the school committee is not in the business of developing recreational areas or playgrounds. Only the select board and, to some extent, town meeting is in the business of doing that. And so the only thing this group has the option to advocate for in its role right now is a playground and recreational space. Any other use that you would like to see, you would need to go through the 2/3 vote, again, which would go through the select board. You need a select board approval, 2/3 vote at the town meeting, and then a home rule petition. All of that goes through the select board. if you wanted to see anything but a playground and recreational space. And Michael, you made a good point. I know we hear a lot about declining enrollment, and you know, you talk about consolidating middle schools. So I mean, this isn't really
what if?
What if? But in looking at the demographic trends, you know, it wouldn't. Like I said, it was not. It's not legislated as a school site. It would need all the same process to become a school site. And I don't know that. And to your point, John, yes, there is a need for. I don't see there's a need. I've heard it said as well that we could always use more parks and playgrounds. We have some ideas that I know the park board has talked about different ways to get to that. I don't know if increasing the acreage is necessarily the right answer because there's a maintenance burden that goes along with that, and the other thing is, you know, a lot of the fields do sit vacant out of season, and so but again, I need to stress, while I look at it as a great opportunity, the community is going to have by far more to say about it than I do. And like I said, it really boils down to the simple fact that if this committee is not going to build a park or a playground on that site, then there really is no need to have this 55-year-old authorization for care, custody, and control.
He loves that.
Yeah. It really makes sense to get something going. If something different is going to happen, it really needs to be in the purview of the select board. So, I hope, like I said, and it is kind of complicated, and you may go back a long time, but it really is, like I said, it's not really much. It feels like something big that you're giving up, but really, in practice, it's not.
Are you expecting us to take action tonight? Or
I'd love it if you did.
Could we have some time to deliberate further?
You're the chair.
I'm just wondering what the.
I don't need a vote
Is there a
in
request
hand
from the select board? For a
the
timeline?
request was that I present this information and request the vote from the school committee, which I have done. And there's no need for a vote tonight, but I think this is, like I said, this is going back a long time. I know it's been talked about since long before I got here, and I personally would like to see something happen with it. It doesn't really serve anybody very well, you know, as 21 acres of woods. Let me rephrase that. I don't believe that its highest and best use is in its current condition.
So let me just, I'm not understanding correctly. So if we did transfer control and all the other words that you said to the select board, to redevelop it the way that, if someone were to come up with a plan to redevelop it that way, you would still need 2/3 vote at town meeting?
Correct, and the legislative and a home rule petition.
Okay. So it wouldn't, it wouldn't just be the select board saying, this is what we're gonna do?
Yeah, no, this is one step in a very, very long process, and that's, like I said, and the school committee would obviously be watching that process. There's collaboration by virtue of the fact that those of you who serve on the committee are all residents, like most people are here, but you know, you can exercise your voice at town meeting. I mean, there's lots of different ways to have input on this, but it's not, you know, it's not a school site. I just want, like I said, I want to make sure that that's clear to all of you, but also the people watching at home, that it was based on the reading of the language. It was never intended to be a school.
Michelle?
Does it say it's intended to be for a playground?
Specifically, playground and recreational center.
Michelle?
So I just want to ask, there's a sentence that said something about educational purposes, and so I just am wondering if that might be where we're, it's on above control of the land in the section that says permitted use of the land. Towards the bottom of that paragraph, in quotes, says, any person, society, or other organization for such other public, recreational, social, or educational purposes.
Where's that?
Page 2.
Page 2 of the facts from.
Top paragraph.
Top paragraph.
You look at the letter or the article?
The article, so what does it say, page 47 at the
Dave
bottom?
Martell, okay.
The back page of the first.
Fourth line up from the bottom of the paragraph.
End of the first paragraph.
Well, that references the Mass General laws. That's section 14.
Yep.
Michelle, is Mass General laws, which defines public use.
Okay.
And this does say, the article itself says, public playground and recreation center in accordance with the provisions of section 14, chapter 43. Now, I'm not a lawyer, and I'm certainly not the town's lawyer, but I read that as a public use, specifically the playground and recreational area, as defined by that Mass General law.
Okay.
I guess if they wanted to broaden it, it would say, or other uses in accordance with section 14. That,
understand.
I guess they had the opportunity to broaden the net
Okay.
in that language, and it doesn't say or other uses. It just says these two uses as defined by that section of law.
Thank you.
Jana.
And just a really bizarre question, because I'm not a lawyer either, but this document, is it referencing section 14 as it is today, or as it was when this was written? And has that changed?
I would doubt it. I think it references as written back then. I would doubt that it has changed substantially since then.
Okay. Just curious.
Yeah. I did. Well, let me say this. Attorney Martell went through his letter today. I mean, he's gone back through it because I told him that this was coming up again and asked what I needed to do, and he acknowledged that language and said it essentially is the same today.
Okay.
As it was, it's for sure in 2002 when you wrote the letter.
Any other questions for?
Yeah, just for the historical record, in 1959, most of that area was wooded, undeveloped. Where I live, Cedar Road, had a few houses on it, but as you went towards East Long Meadow and then up Frank Smith, there was nothing there. People used to go hunting there. So there was an attempt, I guess, to preserve that from development. Now the tide has turned, and now we're looking at potential for development.
I hear what you're saying on that. I guess I think, like I said, we're all drawing our own conclusions from 3 lines in a 55-year-old town meeting warrant, but it was meant to be active, not conservation. I think that was pretty clear when they say playground, recreational facility. It's meant to be like Bliss Park. And for whatever reason, they just never developed the park. And if it's, priority changes, population shifts, things like that, money, whatever the consideration was, they never developed it. But it was clearly intended to be, like I said, like a Bliss Park, as I read that language. And so it isn't now, and it doesn't appear that it's. It may end up being that another Bliss Park is going to be our highest and best use, based on what the community feels. But I think from a cost standpoint, not only to develop it but also to maintain it, I think it would be burdensome to the town to add another recreational complex without offsetting something else. And like I said, I think that, the people who live there, I think are gonna want to be heard on how this is going to get used more than anyone.
Sure.
But if it's going to be anything besides a playground or recreational area, it really will be the select board's job to go through that process. So no other questions?
Anybody else for Mr. Crane? I will put this on a future agenda to finish deliberation.
Well, thank you, and I very much appreciate your time.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay. Great. So, moving right along, we get back in order now. Joseph, student rep report.
We had a little confusion.
Thanks for standing us up.
I just wanted to return the favor. We were going to talk about some very big things that we're focusing on. The biggest which is our electronic report card initiative. Really getting revved up about that. Hopefully we'll be able to talk about that in next week or the week after at our SCAC meeting. Not much has happened since our last report. Again, I want to echo, I think it's a great decision that we've made to go with the website with Ms. Godin, and The only thing that SCAC actually is working on right now is the annual student handbook review has started, and that's Wednesdays after school. I know 2 years ago we had a parent representative. We don't have one now. So if there's any parents who would like to be involved in that, I'm sure you could contact Mr. Dunkley and get some information about that. We're looking at a lot of things. We're looking at the technology policy. It looks like that the other schools in the district want to use the current LHS technology policy as a model because it works very well. So that's something that we were going to refine. We're also looking at some older laws and things or rules and bring them up to speed with the new building and things like that. So that's we're very happy about that. So that'll be completed before the next vacation. And other than that, everything I mentioned at the last meeting is we're still working on it. So yeah, so look forward to our next SCAC meeting.
And that's going to be before our next meeting.
Okay.
I'm asking.
Yeah, if that works, then yeah.
All right.
All right. I will inform the others.
April 14th.
April 14th.
We'll be there.
Perfect.
Any
We will
questions?
too.
Any questions?
Any questions for Joseph? All right. Moving right along, financial report. John?
We,
Yes.
Tom?
we're recommending the revolving account, right?
Correct. Finance Subcommittee did meet on the 19th of March, and they did take action on one item. I had requested that Finance Subcommittee recommend the school committee adopting a new revolving account. So with the expansion of the after-school enrichment program and now the creation of the lifelong learning program, we would like to create a revolving account will allow us to receive funds that are collected or fees and tuition for these programs and charge expenses associated to these programs to an account specific to them so that it's not commingled as it currently is with the summer school program. So Finance Subcommittee did recommend the establishment of a new enrichment education program revolving account.
Okay, so we have a motion.
Sure, please.
I move that the school committee approve the establishment of a new revolving account for enrichment education programs.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on motion? John?
Well, as Tom suggested, it was basically felt that it would be best to keep these funds separate because they're serving different constituencies. But it's really just a kind of a setting up another filing system for it, but keeping the accounts separate.
Yeah. Great. Any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? The motion carries 7-0. It's our first 7-0 vote. Just want to put that out there. Any other financial business?
That's it.
All right, great. Thank you. So moving on into other reports, I think we had well, you want to go over the SBC? Actually, should Janet do it?
School building committee.
School building committee update. So I know that neither John nor I were there.
I
but-
pretty much gave it
And
all
you
to
pretty
you
much did.
during my
Yeah.
report. And I sent everyone an email, the meeting is Thursday at 6 o'clock with the neighbors about the traffic here.
John.
Could I just throw something out? A number of people have asked me about the amount of lighting that exists, not only around the new high school, but around several of the other buildings. Is there any way we can reduce that? I know it's called security lighting.
Mhm.
Is there some legal requirement to have that much wattage or foot candles? Because there's a lot of light, and one in particular that was mentioned to me by a number of people is Wolf Swamp School.
Sure.
Wolf Swamp Road School.
Well, let me look Tom's way. I suggest that we ask Adrian to put together a report and come back with suggestions to us. I think safety is a paramount concern, because with schools that are not well lit, they break into technology in other areas. And once you start that, that's a problem. But do we need as much as we have? Maybe we could work with Adrian to come back, and are we using the most cost-efficient lighting?
Well, if I can add, John, I remember, I think it was probably 2011, we were approached by Wamico for some of their programs where they retrofitted all the lighting fixtures, at least at Glenbrook and Williams, with high-efficiency fixtures. So I know that exists. I'm not sure about the elementary schools, but I assume because they've been renovated recently that they probably met some, whatever the energy code at the time was.
We did do projects also at the elementary schools, even though they are newer. Fixtures are 10-plus years old. they're not LED fixtures, but they are high efficiency. So the police department has encouraged us to keep them lit. When we initially did the project at Wolf Swamp, a number of residents complained because of the amount of light that was projecting out across the street. So we did have deflectors put in to help kind of keep the light just up along the building for security purposes. So we can talk to Adrian and see, but we did do energy efficient fixtures, I'd say in the last 3 to 4 years at all of the buildings, both inside and outside.
And I would just add that any new work we have to do would have to meet the stretch energy code that we adopted at the last town meeting, 2 town meetings ago. So.
Okay. Well, the reason I mention it at this point in our meeting is our electric bills for the new high school are quite high. And so people are looking for and conjuring up, I guess, explanations for why it's so high and what we can do about it. I understand it's not lighting so much that's driving our electricity needs. It's instead the systems that are in place for moving air, both cold and hot, throughout the building.
Yeah, just to speak to that for a second, I did have the opportunity to speak with Bobby Barquette, and he spoke pretty much about what Marie was talking about between some of the software coding with the heating utility in the building, where it's basically been in the occupied setting consistently. And right now, I know that they're trying to code it to at least trick it into going into unoccupied at the appropriate times, but obviously we want more of a permanent solution than that, which is part of the discussion that I think, the continuing dialogue that we're going to be having on SBC.
Yeah, the building is occupied during certain hours, and then we shut the heat down about 4 o'clock and lower it. And then it goes into that unoccupied state where it reduces the airflow and the heat and all that. The contractor is suggesting that we look at absolutely shutting everything down, the airflow pieces of it, that the fans are eating up a lot of the electricity. So he's suggesting we look at the unoccupied times and shut it off for the fans and all that will save money. But we're making all kinds of changes right now. We're looking at the light harvesters and all kinds of other issues that are causing problems that would increase the price. So we're going to try all of those until we get to the point where we shut down an unoccupied. But right now, it's not the time to do it because we still don't have the heating and cooling's working appropriately, so we need it in both modes to determine what's effective. But once we do that, that's another trial that we can see how much we would save if we did that. So we have a whole list of things that we're going to try, but it's one at a time to make sure the system's operational.
So the amount of foot candles is something that's controlled by the police?
Not controlled by the police, but
Well, I mean,
they've
they're the one-
requested.
What?
They make requests for appropriate amounts of lighting for their own patrolling.
And there's no
purposes.
way we could modify that request?
We can work with them.
Yeah, we'll talk to Adrian and see what other fixtures or bulbs might be available that are efficient but not as bright, but will meet the security
Well, I
desires of
understand the
police
reason for
department.
security, but that lighting, it seems to me, should be close to the building. And a police officer drives the police car around the building, and there is a road now. I believe it's around every building.
No, a couple schools don't have it.
They're not paved
Blueberry
yet.
and Wolf Swamp.
They're not,
They're in mud and snow.
They've requested that I think those capital items they were requesting.
so, yeah.
John, I think it's an excellent point, and once Adrian comes back with a suggestion, I think we then reconvene with Chief Ciano and Chief Madison to say, does this fit your needs as well as ours? Because it's critical that we work in conjunction with them in making this decision, so.
Okay, very good.
Great. So the next SBC meeting is on May 1st. Legislative?
No, nothing to present.
Okay. Green?
We are going to meet tomorrow and discuss composting and some green initiatives to lower costs at the schools.
Fantastic. Operations? Not a whole lot, right? Seal?
Their March 26th meeting has been canceled so that parents may attend a meeting or a workshop at Hatfield Elementary School on coping with challenging behaviors with special needs children. So the SEAL committee decided that best use of their time was to not meet, to allow parents to go up there, and then the next meeting will be April 5th.
Do you know who's sponsoring that workshop?
I believe it's the Hatfield schools for that. But I know that there's SEAL is working with the elementary PTOs and perhaps even the middle school PACs to get workshops brought in about not just dealing with challenging behaviors, but how to help your kids deal with the stresses of school. So.
It'd be great if we could offer something like that closer to home, because Hatfield's a little...
It is, but I think that it was worth sort of the trek, was the
definitely.
message that they're trying to send. So, but they are working on getting someone in for Long Meadow.
I also met with Shelley Warren, who is our substance abuse coordinator, last week, and we talked to her about being more proactive around some of the programs. Kim had raised the issue, and Katie and a few of you, that it would be nice to have some programs to parents, and we agree fully. So we're talking about putting together a series of programs, have them for all grade levels. The very first thing she's doing is working with me in WENU on the Tar Wars. It's an education program on tobacco for 5th graders, so that's going to be implemented this spring. But then we're talking about what proactive programs, because the number one drug abuse right now is prescription drugs, and the kids are getting them from parents' medicine cabinets, not even their own parents, but others, so that there's a series of things that we could do to educate parents. So we're looking at that. So this is another type of program we could bring. But any type of information you have, as Shelley and I work on this, please forward those ideas, because I hope that we'll open next fall with a series of events for parents, so they know all year long what to expect in terms of being able to attend programs.
That would be.
That's great.
That would be wonderful. I was talking with a couple parents at Blueberry, and we were talking about this same thing that Katie was talking about. Dr. Saline is the one that's going to be there, and they wanted to bring her here, and we thought about talking to all the PTOs, and we thought about maybe next year talking to all the PTOs to see if we could get one event hosted at every school so that all the parents could attend each event. So this here that you're that you're already doing that sounds great to me.
And we went a little further, because in past experience, we've run these programs, and sometimes you have 5 parents, sometimes 15, and you'll hit a night, you might have 50, you're lucky. But to work with other districts on this and share the cost, it would be fabulous for our collaborative to host this. Every district pay a minimal amount and just share where the activities are. But it's really important that we do provide this education for our parents. So.
And for bringing the kids in too, and seeing, offering the kids ways to deal with, the stresses that they're under. Even, we often overlook elementary school and the kinds of pressures that we put on really young children, and giving them a say and saying, and the tools from somebody other than mom and dad or their teachers, so they see, they tend to buy in a little bit more. So.
Well, great. Can't wait for your proposal. All right, moving on to collaborative.
Okay, the Lower Pioneer Valley Educational Collaborative is in the process of searching for a new director, because Ann McKenzie's leaving. And we were given 16 applicants with varying degrees of excellence. And we've started sifting through them. And we're going to have a full meeting of the board representatives and the superintendent's representatives this coming Friday, starting at 11. And we hope that we're going to be able to cull that down to maybe down to 6, then to 3, and we'll then be doing oral interviews. So that's where we're at.
Just a question, because obviously I think this is the first time that any of us have gone through a process of hiring a new collaborative director. Because we're the owners, as a board, do you bring a recommendation back to us? Do we have to vote, for you as a delegate to, hire that person, or what's the process for that?
Now, we looked into the legal understanding, because the way the collaborative is set up is we have 7 districts, and within the 7 districts, there's a superintendent's committee, there's a board of directors, and there's also board of governors. The board of directors and the board of governors are all made up of school committee representatives. So the superintendents actually never meet with the board of directors, which we probably should do, just to touch base, make sure we're on the same page. But we legally checked out who was responsible for hiring, because there you have 3 leadership groups.
Right.
But who has the final say? The attorney said it rests with the board of directors, that what we've agreed to is that we had the Massachusetts Association of School Committees cull through the resumes, and they went from 68 down to 16. Now, the board John's talking about, the hiring committee, has 3 superintendents, 3 board members. They're going to pick who we interview. The superintendents are going to interview the candidates and send forward 3 names to the Board of Directors. And the Board of Directors have the legal authority, based on their vote to be on the board.
Okay.
They will select the finalists to bring forward.
Well, it's good to know. I mean, I think obviously it's a process question that at least I was unclear on.
It might be, your question's a good one, though. It may be, John, you should suggest they have meet the candidates, so any school committee member who'd like to interview them, that's usually typically part of the process.
Well, and all our meetings are public,
Mm-hmm.
so anyone who wants to can go over and check it out. Basically, what we've done is look at credentials and make sure that they're valid, and then their record of achievement or non-record. And then, with the final test, it's just like we did with the principal search, make a judgment call. But it's a judgment call based on considerable amount of evidence, testimony, data.
Great. Any questions for John? All right. Middle school working group. Madam Chair.
I wish I had more to report, but the stomach bug had hit my house, so I missed the call that with the
You and me?
school building.
Yeah. We called the MSBA, and Janet and I came in, Katie was not feeling well, and we asked a plethora of questions to see what would be best for us to do in terms of rushing an SOI to get in by April 11th or waiting until next year. Based on the detailed information on how long each step takes, because there's a new process since I was through it. It has to go through, help me out here, Janet, it has to go through first the SOI, then they come out with what's called a priority list, and if you're on the priority list, the MSBA visits every one of those schools. And from the priority list, they break that down into you're being invited to apply for the funding or you're not. So that in itself is a full year. It goes from that then into where you have to get funding from your town, go through town meeting. You have to get, there's the schematic design stage, there are several stages. So we're looking at 5 to 6 years out. So we thought, based on the timeline they gave us and what we're hearing around town, it would be better to wait 1 year to do the SOI, because we don't want to rush this and come out too early. If we apply for an SOI, the required immediate action of the town, including going to town meeting for money for design stages, I think it's too soon to say to the town, oh, by the way, we applied and we need money in the fall. I think that would be a political backlash. We need to educate the town, go through what's wrong with the buildings, and ask their support. So we decided that we're going to wait the 1 year based on what we learned.
That sounds good. Any questions for Marie? All right. So for policy, I know you have a first reading. Do you just want to do it now?
Sure.
Okay. Let's pull it out for you.
That. Okay.
Right?
Yep. Our policy that we are for our first reading, it is about field trips. Mr. Dunkerley just had some suggestions to change some wording. And we have complied with his request.
So, Michelle, I just want to let you know what we're doing. You're not, I wasn't really calling you. So before us tonight, we have 2 policies for first reading. Under school committee, we have a policy book. We read them, not out loud, but we have our first reading, and then we post these policies to our website for 30 days for public comment. At the end of that 30 days, we review public comment, make changes if necessary, and then we post it, or we approve it. So we're not going to approve it tonight. We don't have to take any action. So now we're just having our first reading of the policy. So, and that's, the 2 policies are, well, you amended, right? One is IJOA and IJOA-R. And those will be up tomorrow morning? Okay. Something like that. Perfect. All right. So we did our simple machines presentation. We had our water tower discussion. We're going to move on to the 2015-2016 school calendar. One of the things that the calendar committee and the admin team have done which I think is very smart, is to develop a calendar 2 years out, so that beginning this year, we will always know not just what next year's school year looks like, but what the year after, which is going to help parents plan vacations for first days of school and summer breaks. Will also help us be able to plan, different activities throughout the year. The one thing that's not on the calendar we're approving tonight is the early release days and late start days for 2015, 2016.
The dates are there, but they haven't decided whether they're gonna be early
Okay.
release or late start. And they may change.
And they may change.
I thought we were only doing early releasing.
We're trying one day. The high school has an issue where when you do an early release in the wintertime, the students have no place to go. So they're put out of the building because the teachers are working in the building, and they're in the cold or they're at the shops. The high school asked us to consider actually having a late start so that when the students come in later, they can, high school students like to sleep in, but they're there in the afternoon, they go right to sports. There's been feedback from the elementary that maybe this doesn't work best for them, so the committee decided, let's try it one time, and then we're going to go back and revisit the success of doing that next year. It is in the best interest of the high school students to at least have one during the wintertime. It's unfair to expect that a student has to be outside or wandering around for an hour or two, a couple of hours to get to sports, so.
Now, during these, not to get too off topic, but they're still doing their PLCs during these early release and late start days, right?
There's been a lot of training this year.
Okay.
The high school's been meeting by department, so that would be PLC work. The middle school's done some, but we've had a lot more literacy training and reading workshop, writing workshop, et cetera.
And has that training and that professional development, have high school teachers gone to other schools and worked with teachers in lower grades, or is this something that maybe we just do for the high school and not do for the elementary schools?
We've had high school teachers meet with the 8th grade teams, and we've had some 6th grade teachers meet with 5th grade teachers, so that's beginning.
Okay.
Because our articulation, we realize that we have some gaps, and particularly around math, we had some major progress 6th to 5th. Do they always have to be the same? No, but it's an issue with busing, an increased cost because if the bus is running at different times, so there were other compounding factors that we talked about. So I suggest we try it the 1 year. Calendar committee meets again, get everyone's perspective on it, ask the parents how it worked, and then come back with another recommendation.
Perfect.
What exactly was it that the elementary school said was the problem with doing the late start?
They felt that the learning time for the little ones is better in the morning. And if you look at studies, high school kids sleep in, little ones are up at 6, 7 in the morning. Their learning time is the morning.
Okay, I thought maybe like there was a busing issue. So is there any?
And also speaking from a parent's point of view, it's a childcare issue if you're going to be flipping back and forth,
That was
If
it.
you know you have early release the first Monday of the month or whatever it is, you can make arrangements. If you're used to early release and then all of a sudden, boom, there's a late start, or you start flip-flopping back and forth, childcare arrangements could be a problem.
So from that perspective, I was going to suggest maybe we do elementary school.
We'll still do that.
A different system than high school, but I guess from that perspective, it wouldn't be very effective.
But as Kim just said, we do provide daycare, childcare, and if we need to continue to do that, we'll do that. The real premise for going to the 2 years was because graduation, Symphony Hall is now getting booked earlier and earlier, and other districts have the 2-year calendar, so that we're beginning to get dates that are not advantageous for our families. So with this 2-year, we can book out 2 years in advance.
For instance, this year's Monday night?
Not the best.
Not the best night. Monday the 2nd.
Actually, my class just went through. We booked our date for 2015, and we learned that Springfield schools actually get first pick. So
Right.
this will be helpful.
This will be very helpful, so.
Great. Any other discussion? I'll call for a vote.
Do you want a motion?
Yeah, I'll call for a motion and a vote and all that stuff.
I move on the recommendation of the calendar committee and the superintendent that the school committee approve the school year calendar for 2015-2016 as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? The motion carries 7-0. And just for anybody actually watching at home, the first day of school for the following year is going to be on the 31st of August for 2015-2016.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah.
You mean college?
Yes. It doesn't matter much to me. I was looking at the 8th for some reason.
All right.
No, this is 2 years from
All right, moving on, we have an overnight field trip request. Enclosed in the packet is a request for Long Meadow High School students to go on an overnight field trip to Italy and Greece. This is for students in the Latin program. I'll entertain a motion.
I move on the recommendation of the superintendent that the school committee approve the overnight field trip request for students from Long Meadow High School to travel to Italy and Greece on April 16th, 2014 through April 24th, 2014.
Second.
I have a motion and I have a second. Any discussion?
Do they need a chaperone? No, just kidding.
Yeah,
John.
A question. Why are we getting this now? It seems like a very short
It's late.
amount of time. Any reason for the lateness?
I was not given an explanation as to why I arrived so late.
Would assume
Typically,
they already have their
we do
tickets.
these in the spring, I mean, in the fall. Right?
6
Does
months
it
in
have something
advance.
to do with the letter that Paul attached here about,
So they started in February.
because of a teacher that left in good
It's a joint
standing?
field trip between East Long Meadow and Long Meadow.
Right.
It's the Pride Tide thing, though. It still is late. It's very late.
So, anyway,
But it meets with your approval.
It does. The chaperones have everything well arranged. It's been well thought out. They have good chaperones, so I support the trip. It's a great experience with our students.
great. So I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? The motion carries. I went on a very similar trip, so I can attest to how fun it is. It is scary, yeah. It wasn't that long ago.
I've had both teachers, I can attest to them.
My teacher's not here anymore. All right.
Cheaper to go?
Actually, I'm very excited because I'm going to Paris with friends in the, during April vacation to that condo that Leaf auctions off, which is beautiful. But there's a student group over there, so I'm going to meet up with the student group in Paris, which will make for a special part of it. Awesome.
Special for you.
I've heard they're very excited.
I'm sure. All right.
Not directly from them.
No, definitely not. So moving on to approval of warrants. Just so you know, Michelle, we approve warrants at every meeting. They're basically the bills that we have to pay. And someone, it looks like in this case Liz, reviewed them.
Yep.
And she'll make the motions.
Okay, what's this?
There's some language right in there.
Jeez.
Oh, you got it?
Sorry, 1 second. I move that the school committee approve the warrant batch number 2201 of the school lunch fund, FY14, dated March 28, 2014, in the amount of $81.16.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor? The motion carries.
Okay, second. I move that the school committee approve the warrant batch number 2200 of the general operating fund FY14, dated March 28th, 2014, in the amount of $301,529.69.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? The motion carries. And that's it for warrants?
Yep.
2 batches?
Yep.
All right, so we have no consent agenda, and we'll move on to the approval of minutes. Can I have a motion on the minutes from March 10th?
I move that the school committee approve the minutes of the March 10th, 2014 school committee meeting as presented.
I have a motion.
I have a correction.
Do you want to make a second and get it on the table? And then
I'll
we can
second
have
it, yeah.
A motion and a second. John, amendments?
Yeah, on page 4, school committee comments, number 4, just before old business, that first paragraph, I talked about a letter from Mr. Friedman. I'm just bothered by the grammar in the last part of that. Mr. Fitzgerald also commended Ms. Bone for a very well-run meeting, not a very well-good meeting. Okay. Me like meeting. Meeting good. Call it a well-run meeting, that's my only issue. There was another one on page 3. You probably said that we were going to meet on March 24th for doing the vote. This is
We didn't have a date.
just above at 8:39.
Yeah.
Michael?
Yeah, but it says that it was tentatively set, which we did say that in the meeting.
All right, tentatively, fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm comfortable with that.
But we didn't meet them, we actually met on the 18th.
Right.
Fine.
But for the purposes of the meeting, I mean, for the
Tentatively,
minutes.
fine.
Yeah.
With that understood, thank you.
All right, so, as amended?
As amended.
Second.
Okay, motion as amended and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None? All right, great. Moving right along, we have a motion on the minutes, the executive session minutes from March 10th. Can we just approve those?
Sure. I move that the school committee approve the executive session minutes of the March 10th, 2014 school committee meeting as presented.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those, or any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? The motion carries. And finally, can I have a motion on the minutes from the 18th?
I move that the school committee approve the minutes of the March 18th, 2014 school committee meeting as presented.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? The motion carries. All right. With that, we have no other planned business for the night. Any?
One last thing. Something that the school lunch warrants jogged my memory. I remember a couple months ago we discussed we had a very large sum of debts from all the school accounts, and I don't know. I'm sure we know this, but there was an email sent out to all the students, and it was actually this week was a lot of kids were talking about how there was a $10,000 total deficit, and I actually echoed how it was actually $14,000. So. It's starting to be known. I heard a bunch of kids saying that they would pay off their small debts. So
Good.
hopefully that will reduce.
Excellent.
Tom's really happy to hear that.
Have we had any good feedback?
We are starting to see students and families addressing the negative balances. So schools are also following that email with phone calls and letters from principals and staff. So.
Fantastic. So our next meeting is the 14th of April, correct? All right, great. Without any further business, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A motion.
Second.
Second. No discussion. All in favor? The motion carries. Thanks very much for joining us tonight. We'll see you back on the 14th.